Good morning. How is everybody? Just checking in. Want to say hello to everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. It is March 15th, halfway through into the first quarter. We are almost done with the first quarter. So just wanted to check in. We're going to do some ZENcasting today. I'm Paul Pedron, Product Manager of ZENworks Service Desk and Microfocus Desktop Containers. However, we will be covering the ZENworks ports and protocols today for the ZENworks portfolio. All right. Next time we're going to be doing ZENworks bundling, which was a common, very popular one. So hopefully we can match that and do better for the next time. You can download today's presentation by in the chat. Hello, Jose. Glad to have you. So we are there. Let's see. So you can download the presentation and let's go ahead and go forward. Let's see what we got for today. ZENcast, let's cover a couple housekeeping. ZENcast Live is for the ZENworks admins and the ZENworks community, everybody using the ZENworks. We meet on the first and third Tuesday of every month and at 9 o'clock Mountain Time. Let me go ahead and turn off my screen. You don't need to see me. And I am going to modify my sound over here so you don't get any feedback. One second. There we go. All right. Again, you could see the details and recordings out on ZENcast on the community site. And you can see them also out, all the recordings, out on the Microfocus support and training. You can see here we have ZENcast, Service Desk, Desktop Containers, and ZENworks as well, which is the ZENworks Configuration Management. So those are all the webinars and so forth. ZENcast has all the ZENcasts. If it's related to Service Desk, you'll also see it in the Service Desk area. Okay. You can also see the ZENcast live upcoming schedule right here, and you can see that you can get to the webinars index. You can see what our upcoming schedule is, as well as the past schedules. So you can see what we've recorded, so you can go to them, and they're sorted by product and topic. All right. So a little bit for you. If you haven't been here before, thank you for coming. Be sure to subscribe, and that way you'll get notifications. Log into the chat so we can discuss what's going on. If you @sign in front of the name, you actually direct message that person and set your viewing to auto 720p 60. That'll be the best viewing. Be sure to comment and like if you like this particular episode or recording. It would be great to get that feedback. So ZENworks Ideas Exchange, be sure to go into the ZENworks Ideas Exchange. Right? As you see, you can go into each one of the ZENworks products here. And for instance, we'll go into configuration management and you have an ideas exchange. This helps get participation from the ZENworks community in order to see how well or what the urgency is on those particular ideas. And it helps you build up the product for your environment, right? So that we can include them in our desktop or our product, right? There's also discussions there. You'll see here discussions. And that'll get you feedback from other administrators. Tips and info is out there as well for that particular product. And then we also have the TCM log, which has been updated. If you didn't know, ZENworks Service Desk 8.3 is released. Okay. So again, if you haven't visited the technology transfer partners, be sure to go out there. You can see what's going on in that community. Another collaboration of admins talking about the products, and not just ZENworks products, but across the Microfocus portfolio. This way you can actually converse with them on other products as well, see what's coming up in the community and the events. Currently, there's a survey out there, which you'll see. Be sure to take the survey. They have typically do conferences throughout either the US, Europe, and Asia Pacific, and they want to get more ideas on how to do that, especially in this remote working world. All right, so please go out there and double check that. That'll be helpful for Peter. Currently, we are doing ports and protocols today, and next week we're going to be, or next time we're going to be doing ZCM bundling. This was a popular one that we've had before, and I think it's a good time to bring it back. Maybe do some MSPs or some of those things. Okay. And please email me at zen@microfocus.com or directly paul.pedron@microfocus.com about anything you'd like to see on the schedule. Today's particular ZENcast is generated by this audience here, so hopefully I can give you some solid information that you can work on. And somebody just happened to put in the comments, hey, I'd like to see more about TLS, right? So we're going to go ahead and do that. One of the events which is happening next week is the ZENverks 2022. And you can go ahead and sign up and register for that. There's different areas of Micro Focus you can sign up for. We're in the IM&G space if you're looking for the ZENworks products, but you can register for ZENverks, and there's EMEA, Americas, and APJ. So depending on your location, you can register for those particular sessions. Okay, and see what's going on in the Micro Focus universe and set of products and so forth. Okay, these are a few things that will be on the ZENworks side in ZENverks, right? Securely backing up endpoints, ZENworks reporting, malware protection, digital workspace, and so forth. All right, so be sure to register, check out the sessions, and sign up for some of those so that you can see what's going on, and you can ask questions. There'll be live Q&As and interaction with the actual hosts. So please do that. That'll be great. Next, what's going on in the community? We have, of course, went back. We have this new release, which I think I mentioned earlier. ZENworks Service Desk version 8.3 is released. We have some great features and components, modernizing it even further than as we're slowly getting onto the Angular coding. So there's a lot of good stuff that's in here. You'll see links and so forth for those particular things. And there's a README out there as well, which you'll see later on. Some additional things on the cool solutions. One of the developers put out, if for item names, this one pertains to ZENworks Service Desk, fixing item names which result in a UI break, which is if you have really long item names, the columns may get jarbled. Another one is ZCM, eligible devices for Windows 11 upgrade. Okay, has some details there. ZSD sidebar customizations. The developer put out there how you can add or take away the sidebar if you're not using it. And then item identifiers is another cool solution that's out there now. It's in the form of a TID at this time. But if you are trying to, when you're selecting items, being able to see more detail about that item, you can actually put an identifier label. Okay, so those are some of the things that are recent. It came in recent weeks for the ZENworks side of the house. Here's another, we're going to go over a couple of versions. So the Unified Endpoint Management and Protection version, ZCM 2020 Update 2 is there. You'll see some links here for the What's New README, Upgrade Cookbook, and so forth. You have the ZRS 7.8, What's New in README. You have ZSD 8.3, What's New in README, Upgrade Cookbook. This particular cookbook was split off. We have a ZSD 8.0 to 8.2 Upgrade Cookbook. which really had a lot of going from 7 to 8. And then we have an individual 8.3 upgrade cookbook because it's a side by side and you have to be at 8.1 or 8.2 to go forward. So we trimmed it down, made it just for 8.3 so that it's easier to read. And then MFDC 2111 is out there. Okay, so if you're on any of those particular versions, or if you're not, you know what versions they're on, and you can work towards getting those in your production system. Okay, recap of last week. What's new? We had knowledge base modernization, the delegate role, advanced item search, customer portfolio or portal. We've done some things for the customer portal to personalize. We've done some knowledge base modernization, which moves it to the Angular framework, which makes it a little easier to read and has the same view as the requests that you've been using in 8.2. Store dynamic forms, and we did some auditing enhancements and other requests. And again, if you look at the what's new README, you'll be able to see all of those details and see how they work. Okay. There's a what's new. There's an upgrade. There's 2 webinars coming up. I sent them out last week for publishing, and they should be published sometime this week. It's the ZSD version 8.3 What's New, and it goes through each one of those in detail, each new feature in detail. Also, the ZSD 8.3 upgrade install. So it also goes through the install and gives you reminders and so forth. So those should be published any day. You don't see links here because they haven't actually been published yet. So we're waiting. Once they get onto YouTube, I'll go ahead and announce those. And then we have the resources. Again, the customization cookbook and the what's new doc with defects. Okay. Today's agenda, we're going to be talking about ports and protocols. Okay. I'm not a specialist on ports and protocols, but I know of them and how they kind of work and that type of thing. So I hope to have information through this particular broadcast where you can actually see um, about your product and at least some links to it. Oh, Kevin. Okay. At the moment, this is not available inside ZCM. Falls short. Avail support is okay. Cool. Yeah. Let me take that over there and see if let me do a cut and paste here on that. I appreciate you venting. That's what this community is for. That's what this forum is for. And I really would like to encourage you to continue with that. I'm going to go ahead and post that here so that we can make note and we can try and attack this at multiple angles, right? So, yeah, thanks for shouting that out. I'm sorry that that's not where it needs to be, and hopefully we can get that included. So again, that's what the chat's for. That's what this forum is for. So shout out the goods and the bads and how we can improve it for you. Okay. One thing that ports, default ports. So there's an article out there. You can find it out on the web. I just picked one, and it shows every port and its typical default registered um, service that it provides. So basically, you have an IP, which is a location, and then you have ports, which are services. So I always think of it like a home, and then you have the rooms, right? These are the services it provides, and you can see 80 is typical, HTTP. A lot of times, so 443, what will you find? You'll find the secure HTTP, right? And that's some of the things we're going to discuss today is making sure that it's secure. But you can see everything in here. And if you're looking for a particular, let's see, I wonder if I can do this. Control find group. See, so group-wise clients, we're registered 1677 is typically what it's used. Okay. So You can go through this list. It goes all the way up to 65. Not all ports are used, but if we go down, you can see they get quite tall. So that's a link in this presentation if you wanted to see it, or you could just go out and look for a list of TCP and UDP port numbers. Okay. Again, you have official and unofficial, and I'm not going to go through and define obviously all of these, but this is a great resource just to be able to say, oh, this it's listening on this. What is it doing? Do I need to close that firewall, right? Because that's where your security is, right? Then you have TLS. So in the ZCM documentation, we have the ZENworks TCP and UDP ports. And this is a nice list of course, this is the appliance at this point of what the appliance needs to be open and closed. All right. Then you have your primary servers and what their service is doing, right? Used for pre-boot server. So if that primary server isn't needed for pre-boot services, you can always turn that off. So that's just kind of an example. All right. And ZSD is just an appliance only, so we don't have quite as many details. There's a few service desk ciphers and ports. Looks like I linked the ciphers more than anything else here. But I think in each one of these they have the port depending on what you're using. Ganglia monitoring. Oh, that takes you outside. Okay, so ZSD is appliance only, and so it has a limited number of ports. You can see here 9443, so that you can tailor that down. But as you well know, ZCM is quite extensive and has a lot of different issued ports for services. And you can see that here, ZENworks agent, ZENworks application, remote management, and so forth. And as we move, just so you know, as we move to the Zocker and Docker and the architecture change. Okay, Kevin, we'll see you then. Thanks for your input. For the Zocker and Docker changes, as the architecture actually changes, you want to make sure you review these for each version that you happen to have so that you can get the right ports. Okay. Again, like email protocols are like IMAP, IMAP-S, POP3, POP3S. And one example to show you in that is, if I have it up here, let's see if I don't think I have it up here. I think it's on this one here. So if I'm logged in here, timed out, stand by. Okay. Okay. So if you wanted to see what is active, you can go to the firewall. Now, currently I have the firewall off, so all of these are open. This is my test device, right? As you have your production, you'll probably have some of these open, some of these closed. I think I have the firewall off on this one. So, but you can go to the firewall. Now remember, if you log in as, in this case, service desk SD admin, you'll notice that we don't have those OS type tiles here. So you have to log in, and that's for security reasons. If you log out and log in as root, you can see digital certificate, time, network, firewall. Okay. Now on ZCM, I believe it's different though. If you do ZenAdmin, you get all the tiles on either root or ZenAdmin. All right. And so you can see that you do have the firewall just logging in as ZenAdmin up here. Okay. So they have a little bit different structure on the ZENworks appliance as opposed to the Service Desk appliance. But anyway, know that those are there. Let's minimize this a little bit, move this over, see if we can see what's going on. Oh, and that's where I was going with that is for instance, if we log in and we go to our setup email, you can see here we have these email setups here. Okay. And of course that's IMAP and that's IMAP secure, POP3, POP3 secure. Okay, and that's just a small example, right? How you can set these up, setting in TLS or not TLS. Okay. So security, SSL security socket layer and transport layer security, SSL and TLS. We'll cover a few of these. You'll probably recognize things like the TLS logjam attack that we had a while back. There's a TID out there on it. And then things like Poodle. I just remember this one because who can forget a vulnerability named Poodle, right? But there's a couple of TIDs out there on how to resolve these, okay, and what the vulnerability is. All right. Again, the portal's default is 80 and it reroutes it to the secure 443. The 9443 on the appliance is typically for the administration of the appliance itself, which were those other ones that I just showed you. Okay, the administration of the appliance itself. And then, of course, you have databases, right? 1433, MS SQL, you have 5432 for Postgres, those types of things. Again, a port is a service on that IP, okay? Email, LDAP has them, 636, 689 for secure. And then again, the system is secured by the firewall itself. And I wonder what this one shows us. Yeah, these aren't turned off. These are the ones that are open. So you can see which ones are open. I have not turned it off in my zone. And you'll see this occasionally throughout the documentation as a best practice. Don't change any port numbers from the default ports. I remember when I was at my previous employer, we used port 81 for our test. So we had our ZENworks ZCM on 80, which routed to 443. Then I had a default port of 81 for my test site or zone. So just remember that you have those default ports. If you do change them, you can change, as it says, you can change the database default port number or other default port numbers if you have a conflict. However, you must ensure the port is opened in this area, right? For instance, service desk to talk to the database. Okay, and this one would be service desk here, firewall. Some of the security logs you can look at for ZCM is server security messages log, and this should be messages, and loader security messages. Okay. We'll cover the easiest ones first, right? ZRS, reconfiguring the ZENworks reporting appliance. You obviously can select certain TLS protocols, select the option for SMTP if it's running on SSL or TLS. Okay, so here's a couple. Basically, this is going to be today's is going to be a lot of links that tie it in. I do have a couple case examples near the end, but actually at the bottom of this one. So at least you'll have links to get to where you need to go, at least to get started and see how you're configured, right? So this happens to be the email server configuration that we're discussing on this one, okay, for the TLS and the SSL. All right, let's go over to the apply, and then you have ports. One thing I didn't note in here, ZRS attaches to databases for either the zone or service desk. And so you need to know the ports of those when you tap into connecting the ZRS to the zone or to service desk. All right, and this is all in the documentation. I'm just giving you quick links to those. Okay, and then appliance management 9443. You can see we saw this a little bit earlier. 9443 displays the appliance console, and that way you can do what you need to do on the console itself. You have database TCP IP ports. Okay, there's a couple there. There should be a couple more on here. I put in a doc defect for this so you have all of them, because it also does MySQL and Postgres. Okay, so you'll find it in the documentation, which is good. Then in ZSD, digital certificates, you have the ciphers, right, which are in the server.xml file, and whether or not you're using particular ciphers to translate that. Okay, and that's a whole nother learning curve for me as far as ciphers, what they're enabled and how, which TL, you can see TLS throughout here and SSL throughout here, right? Email setup. Again, if we scroll down, we could see, I think I showed you this earlier, IMAP, IMAP-S, POP3, POP3S, some of the protocols. Okay. And then view open ports on the firewall. I think I showed you that already. Boy, I jumped the gun on a couple of those, didn't I? And then things like ganglia monitoring. This is the actual link to ganglia monitoring that I was referring to. And you can see it's 9080. Okay. Now, there was a case, actually a recent case. We had a ZENworks service desk customer saying, hey, I would like to upgrade my older system to the latest, but currently I have an old LDAP. What it needs TLS 1.0. Well, there's vulnerabilities in the older TLSs, right? So we had to, while they do their upgrade, they says, I understand that, but we need to get it upgraded. We don't want to start new. So we'll go ahead and make those changes and make sure we change it back to TLS 1.2. So they actually went into this particular file, Java Security, and it showed disable algorithms for TLS 1. And so what they did is they took this out of the and saved, restarted services, and they could then get their LDAP using TLS 1.0 to work with ZENworks Service Desk. But obviously this is here for a reason and security, so make sure that you fully understand what you're doing when you're changing those out. So that's one of the use cases that we had. Another one was we had a ZENworks Service Desk customer that wasn't getting it was email traffic. Okay, they were running one of the later versions, 8 something, and said they were unable to send emails. There's an error message, authentication failed, in their logs. Well, we found out that the SMT servers, Office 365, and we need to have that enforcing TLS, and it was enforcing TLS 1.2. So we needed to make sure that that was all in sync, right? So because ZSD relies heavily on email, and so obviously those communications were required. Okay, so those are a couple case scenarios where we actually had to modify the default so that we can move forward and actually get people either upgraded or communicating and noded through their production system. Let's move over to ZCM. Now ZCM has 2020. I think I showed you the documentation on all the ports. Let's see where am I going with this one? I don't see it moving yet. I'm going to close a few of these. There, now I can see it. Okay. So securing ZENworks 2020 Update 2. Again, the ports are what's available and you're listening to. You want to make sure that You don't have too much out there, so vulnerabilities can come through, especially if you're doing things on your proxy or in your DMZ. You want to make sure that's highly secure, right? So this has some areas of securing your 2020 update 2 by disabling older security protocols. And I think this is what the comment was about, hey, can we do something on TLS? This is the documentation we needed to identify this. Now, one thing to understand, we're changing the architecture in ZCM. We're enhancing it obviously and changing the architecture, which means some of these for this is specific for 2020 update 2, and you'll see it here because 2020 update 1 does not have this path, right? Because we've changed the architecture and some of the pathing. So make sure you go to the documentation that is on that you have in production to make sure you get the right parameters and configurations. But here you can see here it has includes the following: enabled SSL protocols, TLS 1.2, and that's in the server.xml file. It's pretty server.xml is pretty much common between the different appliances and on the ZCM installs. So you can pretty much find those details there. So securing and managing devices, enabling TLS on Windows 7 SP1 if you still have them in your zone, or 8. Okay, securing satellite servers with TLS 1.2, securing primary servers. Again, this is straight from the documentation and the latest out there, which is 2020 update 2. Now, if you wanted to see what ZCM common protocols are, these are them here. So this is the link. You'll find it in the ZENworks TCP and UDP Ports guide. Okay. And you can see here, there's that 9080 we talked about with Ganglia. That's the monitoring tool. 9443 again, administer the appliance. You won't see that obviously on Windows installed ZCM, right? You have your Kafka. Again, as we evolve the systems, we have new things coming in, like Kafka came in at 2020. Vertica's here, right? So you have your ports, and you want to be listening on those ports if you have a Vertica database up, right? So that you can get that communication. There's a lot of different Verticas here. All right, so this is a very valuable document. I know even when I was at my previous employer, I used this extensively just to double check what ports were active and which weren't. These are primary servers here. And then if you wanted to know about, remote management, what does it go across? Well, 5950, 5550, 5750 for the proxy. All right. So this is a great document that has been evolved over the years, and I think it's pretty solid. If you find something that's off, please let us know. Comment at the bottom, and we'll make sure we get it fixed. But by default, this is how you can set it up. Again, you can change the default port number if there's a conflict. However, ensure that the port is open for the primary server to talk to the database, as well as that the database is using that particular port, right? And nobody else is using that port, right? Maybe on the Microsoft SQL database server, some other service happened to grab that port. Well, then the database, you're not going to be able to contact the database. Just makes sense. Okay. Then you have the ZENworks reporting as well. The different areas of the ZENworks reporting, SSL port, non-SSL port. Okay. So this is very, very valuable common TCP and UDP ports. Now there is one article that is in the design documentation. So this is a design documentation. It talks about SSL certificates and so forth. But we also have remote management authentication, and it has links. It talks about TLS encryption add-on and so forth. So securing that remote management, being able to go to security, you can see here, it'll tell you different rights and password based. So there's that one, and then there's the remote management security. Where does this one take us? Oh, it's the same one. This is a security I just linked to. So it gives you additional things about your different protocols. All right. And then again, there's a resource for Tomcat and Apache about SSL and the protocols and understanding the protocols, what the different things in the um, configuration files talk about, so you can get some details on that and understand them a little better. So I threw that in as an external resource here. Okay. Standard implementation. And I think if we go down, I thought there was, no, it's right here. So the protocol. All right. Okay. Netstat. Has anybody used netstat? Netstat is really cool. Let's go ahead and get to one of my servers and we'll do a little bit of netstat. Let's go over to this one, I think. Yep. Okay. Let's go out here. We're going to log into a particular server. This one's ZCM. So everybody should be able to see that okay. All right. I got to click in there, might help. Oh, this one's frozen up. Hang on. Let's open it again. All right. So this is a zone, and if we did netstat -an, okay, you can see connected. You can see what's connected, right? In this case, we have some Zockers, and of course, it scrolled off the screen. You can do pipe more, okay. And there's some Windows versions of this as well to hear and see what's listening. But you can see that it's established on particular ports, but it's also listening on other ports. It'll tell you which ones it's listening on. Okay, so that's just a quick, easy determination. You can obviously port this out to, if you did netstat and then do, let's say, /tmp ports .text, you can port it out to a text file. Okay, so then it shoves it out there as a text file, and you can review it and digest it a little bit easier. You could also, the AN more. You can actually say, I don't need all the other stuff. I just want to see what is listening. Grep LISTEN, and you can see what's listening. So you can start narrowing it down, because there may be ports, but they're established or they're not active. So you can do that as well. And again, you can port that out. So those are a couple of small commands. Netstat, and each one of these obviously are options. TANP, okay, gives you a little more across, more information. I don't have them all memorized. I have the cheat sheet for that. But the netstat is a really, really good way to see what's live, what's active on your system, so you can start closing them down. And if you have your security people or your firewall people know about these ports, but you can go actually onto the appliance itself. I think Service Desk is has a lot less of those. So let's go over to Service Desk, and if we do, and then we can always this and move this over. Okay. And then if we did grep listen, see that's a little bit, it's typically shorter because we're not doing as much as ZENworks is. ZENworks configuration management. Yeah, and if you wanted to say, hey, I'm looking for a particular port number, like I know 5432 is our Postgres, we can do grep 54, and it should come up with my 5432s. So again, narrowing it down. Grep is just a second command of saying, okay, what you found, let's look a little deeper and filter. So it's basically a filter. So we can see that we've established communications on 5432. Okay. Let's see. Netstat. That's the most common one I've used in the past, just to make sure that we have. Oh, what was the NAB? Net, oops, sorry. Netstat over here. Oh, I didn't. That's obviously not right. So it gave me the help, and you could always do the help to see what commands you want to put in. Okay, so NAP works. NAB does not. I got something wrong there. All right, and like I said, you have some windows to check Server Manager. You could do netstats against that and see what's going on. So it's not just inherent to Linux. It's just a common protocol checker for listening. All right. Again, this was more of links and getting you where you needed to go for TLS and what you can do. A couple of case studies about what we did in order to get people moving along. You can move some of those things and modify those configuration files. Just make note of them in your documentation so you know that they may have those vulnerabilities. But otherwise, those are some of the things for ports and protocols that we have for ZENworks. Any more questions from the chat? Okay. Well, shout it out if you have any more questions. Again, not an expert on it. Just when I was in support, we had to determine if the port was listening or not, and being able to diagnose it from there. So if it's not listening, you're not going to have that communication. So this is netstat is a good one to know as far as, are you listening? Okay. Next ZENcast will be the ZCM bundle building. We're gonna go through some more bundles, a little more complex than the last time, but we'll start simple, move forward with a little bit more difficult. I love building bundles, so this is one of my passions when I was at the other employer. So just being able to distribute these things in the right form for the customer to use right away. So we're going to be doing that next time. It's going to be in April. So I hope everybody stays safe and you're able to join me next time. This has been, I know it's been a shorter ZENcast this time, but I appreciate your patience. And again, hope this added some details that you weren't sure about and you could use in your production environment. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'll be on chat for a little bit longer, but feel free to shout out. Feel free to shout out if you have anything. And I hope to see you next time. And Kevin, we'll get back to that response. Thank you, sir. Take care, everybody. Have a good evening.